Hello, everyone, and welcome to the eighth episode of Unmasking Motherhood. I lied, it's the ninth. It's the ninth. And I am just so grateful and honored to be with this beautiful soul, Alex, today. We met through Instagram. I was just telling her how I have a love-hate with technology and really value presence, like in-person connection. But getting on a little over a year ago, after a 3-year break, has led to some really beautiful encounters with people, and this woman being one of them. So I'm grateful for the internet bringing us together. I feel like it was meant to happen, and she's a person that we were like laughing about. Like I just feel like I we got each other. There was this connection, even though we've never met in person. So kindred, kindred.
Kindred for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And Alex is a mom of three, and she lives in Calgary. And I feel like it'll come up more, but lives in like an urban city, but lives more of like a homesteading life and kind of merges the two. And I love it because it's not maybe typical. And I think that so many of you are really interested in incorporating some of those values and elements of maybe a slower paced life or the homesteading life into your family. So maybe that will come up today. As a reminder, the podcast Unmasking Motherhood is all about pulling back the mask of what you think you see from the outside about a person's life, in particular, mothers. It's so easy to see a mom and make judgments about her or against yourself, ultimately leading to disconnection and farther away from the connection we all really crave. Despite this digital age, the facts are there that we're more disconnected and isolated than ever. And I hope that this podcast can help bridge that gap, bringing more gentleness, connection, and just friendship and laughter to our lives through our mothering stories and keeping it real. Love to keep it real, even in the messiness. I was telling Alex before the call because she was so kind to ask, like, what's coming up for you? Saw you had a heavy day. And I really appreciate that. And that just encourages me to keep asking other moms, like, how are you really? Like, I don't want that, like, fine. No, what's really going on? And may this encourage each of you, even if it's just once a day or once a week, to dig a little deeper with your friends because it might be, or the moms in your life, it might be just what they need. So, without further ado, I want to pass the conversation off to Alex. And my first question, well, hold on. Welcome, by the way. I'm just babbling
Hi,
on.
thank you for having me.
Hey, you're here.
Happy
It
to be
happened.
here.
Yes. How are you doing today? Let us
I'm
know.
very well today. I am on the first day of my period, and so I'm feeling this release, this renewal.
Hmm.
You know how that lead up can be is so intense. It's like the wave crashing, and so I was experiencing the peak of that wave last night, and now I get to settle in and allow the release to happen, and I feel renewed and very happy to be here and speaking with you.
Yes. Wow. Kind of beautiful timing. And the new moon, I didn't think about all of that.
Bless.
Yeah, it's intense. Yeah, yeah. So, Alex, part one is always about the exterior. And so I would love, even though I know you love to go deep like me, I just have this sense that you don't love to hang out on the surface. As best as you can, give us in the audience an overview starting from childhood. Like we're going back, girl. So from childhood, just like an overview of your life that paints a picture of like what someone would have seen if they watched your life unfold. And note if it whatever feels comfortable to share or not share, totally open. But if you're willing to know anything related to like religious background, family of origin, socioeconomic background, education, like leading up to meeting your partner in present day, starting with being a baby. So let us
Okay.
love to hear from you.
Okay. So my parents loved each other, but they were not married. And I was conceived early on in their relationship. And then they got married in on Christmas Eve and they had me in May. And I know from my mom's stories that I brought up a lot of things for her, un unfinished, unhealed things. And I was a colicky baby. So I had that was my start. It was probably really chaotic for my mom. and my dad, but luckily for me, they had my sister 3 years later, and um, then they split up when I was 5.
Mm.
And my sister and I were each other's constant for the remainder of our adolescence and upbringing too. Both my parents remarried when I was an adolescent, when I was about 12. And I got a bunch of step siblings. I got 4 step siblings from my stepmom, 4 stepbrothers, and 3 on my stepdad's side, but they had already grown up and I didn't really get to know them too deeply. Um, One I did, but um, so I grew up with this really blended family. It was my sister who was the most like me, and then a big blended family of people who were very different from me too. Um, I got to experience that big family and that kind of, what do you call it? The regular size family, the
Yeah, right.
nuclear
Yeah, I did.
nuclear
Yes,
family.
yes, it went.
Um, and what I liked about that big family was when we would go on vacation, it just seemed like there was a party everywhere all the time. Like if we
No
were in a
kidding.
pool, people were like, "What's going on?" And it's like, just us. This is just what it's like. So I'm grateful for the experiences I had and what a unique childhood I had too. And generally very blessed. My parents are very amicable, have always been amicable. I've 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 had a stepdad who has since my mom has since left him, but he's still an important person in my life. My stepmom also an important person in my life. So I feel like I've had this really enriched, abundant, supported childhood as well as kind of complicated as it was throughout the time. It was generally very positive, and I'm blessed for that. I actually met my husband quite young. I was 22. I'm 33 now. No, I think, yeah, I'm 33 now, but I met him before I turned 23. And we met at a spin studio where I was teaching.
Oh, yeah.
And he was just on the bike next to me when I was supporting another friend's class. And I just felt this electricity with him immediately. And he just had enthusiasm that I hadn't seen from another man, especially doing something like a spin class for the first time. Where he's just like, I've never done this before, and something just clicked, and I invited him to my class. Um, After that, it was very quick. We had dates lined up like that, and it was a very, very fast, beautiful progression into our now marriage. We met March 2014, so 10 years ago, actually. We've been together, which is really cool. A big milestone that I hadn't seen with my birth parents, right? And
Mm.
less than a year later, we actually did get pregnant. And 2 months into dating him, I knew, well, actually, before that, even, I could smell my kids in his skin. I couldn't stop thinking about it, even when I was 22, which is young. And I just couldn't wait. So we did get pregnant that December that we met, the year we met, 9 months into dating.
Mm.
And Mark proposed to me on Valentine's Day, so 2 months later. And then we got back to Calgary and I did my 12-week ultrasound and I found out it was a loss.
Mm.
But at that time, 10 years ago, like no one was talking about it. And I was so shocked
Right.
that it happened because I'm like, I'm a young, healthy person. Like, what is this? I thought it was just like 40-year-olds that would go through
Yeah.
something like that. So that was a massive, massive experience to go through that obviously shaped who I am and my husband as well.
Mm.
um, I can go into those details in as it comes up too, but I feel um like it's important to share that because I felt really alone in it. I felt like that wasn't normal, and the reality is it's very normal for like 20-25% of all pregnancies to be that way. And we have like technology available to us that tells us that we're pregnant before our cycle has even, or like before our periods even due. And and that's an amazing thing, but it also uh I don't know, it's like you get really excited really early too.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
um it was very hard and I cried for 3 months, probably every day. Actually, it was every day for about 3 months. I did end up getting a D&C, which is when they clean out your uterus, because it wasn't coming out on its own. And I didn't want to take a pill to release it. So I was like, let's do a D&C. And people even do it's dilation and curettage, something like that. But sometimes people will even do that just to reset their fertility, because it really just gives your uterus like this fresh, clean wipe kind of thing. So I felt really hopeful after that. But I graduated university in that same couple months.
Oh,
And
geez.
yeah, I gave it the 3 months, like you wait 3 months until you're three cycles rather. And we planned a wedding and we got married in September of that same year. It was a big year. And I was 6 weeks pregnant at our wedding with my daughter, who is Penelope, and she's 8 years old. And my husband actually was looking for work. He quit his job he did not like, in construction, doing financial things for construction. And then the recession came in 2014 and no one was hiring. It was massive firing. And I was pregnant and I just felt like um I needed to stay in Calgary. I needed to stay where I was because I wanted the support of my family and my mom and my stepmom. And he wasn't finding anything. He applied to like hundreds of jobs. It was really stressful. And my daughter was actually born early, 6 weeks early. I think I was spinning too hard, to be honest. I think I was going a little hard on the spin bike.
Doing it throughout pregnancy, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I went a little hard and I got a tear in my amniotic sac. So I started to leak. So I was
Okay.
like, this isn't pee. I don't think so. I went to the
Yep.
hospital and they do the test to see if it's amniotic fluid. It was, so I was induced and I had this pretty, you know, hospital intensive birth. Luckily, I was able to deliver vaginally, but oxytocin and then they had to break my water and it was very intense. And then I had an epidural, which I needed because when they broke that water, it went from, and I'm pumped with oxytocin. It was like a 10-minute singular contraction. There was no
Oh,
break.
geez.
And I just said, if I want to push, I need a break. So I got a break. She came early. We spent 13 days in the NICU. She was born healthy, happy, 5 pound, tiny little baby, our first one. So we had a really interesting, like, entrance into parenthood and into motherhood for me and fatherhood for my husband. And it's so the worst part of that. And I want to also like every time I'm like, oh, this is a good story because if anyone listens to this and let's say they end up having a baby early, which again, I felt like I didn't know anyone who had that. It was scary. It was like I actually didn't even know what a NICU was. I thought that was for like sick babies. I didn't know it was like early new babies. Um, and that first night of leaving the hospital without your baby was so, so hard. And it felt so wrong, and seeing all these other people leave with their big plump babies and just thinking like, what did I do wrong? Like it was heartbreaking. But the help and nourishment of the nurses and staff that like basically allowed us to have this like soft entry into it where we could go home and sleep and then come back to the hospital, spend the day cuddling skin to skin.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Um, and after she was born, about a month in, I was like, I think I got this. We should look somewhere else for work. And so the moment he did, he got a job and we moved to Fernie, British Columbia, which is a small 5,000 person mountain town.
Awesome.
I had never lived anywhere, like I hadn't lived anywhere else. I'd done almost a year in Victoria, Canada, in university. I'd spent a few months in Australia, but I hadn't like moved my life like that. So we went there
Calgary's
and
your hometown. I meant to
Calgary's
clarify.
my hometown. Yeah, born and
Right.
raised. I'm
Yeah.
actually like literally 5 kilometers away from where I was born and my daughter was born.
Oh,
Didn't,
yep.
which is so feels really rooted in a certain way.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yes, you jumped off to totally
so
new.
went to Fernie and after having my baby, I was like, I think I can handle this. Like, yes, it's so good to have support, but I also like realized that I could do this too. by myself, like with my husband. So we moved to Fernie, we took that leap, and then a month later I was pregnant and I wasn't expecting to be. I just thought I had a bad Subway one day.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, because I was breastfeeding. I couldn't tell my boobs. You're not
We're
having
one
your
of
period.
those.
It was wild. So,
My gosh. Yeah,
he wanted to come. He wanted to be here.
absolutely.
So I was, and like my daughter was smaller than normal, right? Like she was 2 months smaller. So, but I was like, it's fine. She'll be walking and talking by the time he's born. It's like, no, you don't know what a 1-year-old is gonna be like
No.
until you have one.
Mhm.
So actually I have 3 children and all of them are April babies, but both of them were born in April. Like a year later, my son was born in April in Fernie, and his name is Elliot. And so I had these 2 babies. Like they couldn't, neither of them could walk. That was wild. We had a beautiful time in Fernie. Everyone always asked me, like, what do you like more, Fernie or Calgary? Calgary is like a million plus person city.
Oh, gee.
Fernie is this 5,000 person mountain town. Pretty like monoculture. Like people go there, they like to mountain bike, they like to ski. That's the vibe. And
Mm,
in Calgary, there's everything. It's an international city.
okay.
So they're so different. And
Oh,
I loved both. They were beautiful experiences. Um, and then I was on the fence for a while for a third, but I think if you're like thinking about it at all, that's what I would look online. Like, how do you know you actually want a third? I don't know.
guilty.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
means you want a third. You're just scared of the work and the shift, and that is so fair. It's so fair to be scared. It's so fair to be scared to become a parent,
Mm,
period. And I the, what I want women and parents to know is that there's nothing you can do to prepare. Like really, like the thing you go through is the initiation itself.
yeah.
Like you can read a million books and you're still gonna be learning as you go. And
Oh,
that's like the infinite becoming that we will constantly be experiencing as parents, as the biggest character development you can ever embark on is raising human beings to be nice.
capital T truth. Yes. Yes. Yes.
So we went for it, and I got pregnant with my third,
And how
and we were
postpartum were you with your second at this point? How old was your second baby?
two just after two,
Okay, so you're a 3-year-old.
which in my mind felt like a huge gap because the
Oh
first
yeah,
ones were so tight. They were less than 13 months apart.
right.
And
Toddler.
so we got pregnant with my third, and we were living life in Fernie, and life's good, and I'm getting more and more pregnant. And then my husband was let go from his job January, so 4 months before I was due, 2020. We all know what happened.
Oh geez, yeah.
So I remember actually the in January I was crying because our childcare provider told us that she's pregnant. I'm like, what am I gonna do for childcare? Like that was my issue at that time. Little did I know my husband would lose his job end of January, and there's like limited work to do there. So then we were like, what do we do? I had an amazing doctor. Her name was Dr. Forrest. She would delivered my son, and she had long hair, and she was like the most midwifey doctor there was. And I wanted to stay for her, but I'm actually really happy we didn't. We just took a leap and went back to Calgary. And that was the end of February of 2020. And we were all really lucky because like my husband wasn't working, I wasn't working. There was no mat leave because I had just come off of still having children.
Yeah.
And my stepdad had a home for us to live in, and basically it was he's an angel in many ways, but he let us stay in one of his homes, and that was a massive saving grace for us that year, especially where we got to nest as a family as COVID hit. So COVID hit mid-March, and I had a lockdown baby
Mm,
in a hospital with my midwife, who wasn't she didn't want to be in that hospital. She wasn't actually very supportive.
mm,
And I'm glad I was a third time mom. I was like, what would
right.
first time moms be going through with this? Which is another thing I'm like, I feel called to talk to the moms who delivered in the pandemic
Mm-hmm.
because oh my gosh,
Oh yeah.
Like
That's
as much as we're like,
dramatic.
oh, the things are different now, it's like, well, that was quite a crazy window, and I don't know if there's been like proper acknowledgement for the women who had to deliver and bring life into a world with like as little support as there's ever been, really.
Oh yeah.
So I
Poke through that.
delivered her when the world was shut down. Her name is Gemini,
Hmm.
and she came 4 days late, which is weird. Usually they say like each one is gonna come
Right.
earlier.
Yep.
Not the case for me. And she was 9 pounds, and I did a hypnobirth, natural birth, and it was wild and raw.
I bet.
But I had like an
Nice.
amazing laboring. I would love to go into that too if the conversation flows there.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
very passionate about birth, pregnancy, periods, babies, love, all of that. Have so much sacred appreciation for those things. Um, So I'm
Ditto.
grateful I got to have this natural birth with her and like feel it and use hypnobirth tracks, which if anyone hasn't heard of that, it's less of a hypnotism and more of like guided meditation that you do every day. I recommend 20 doing it from at least 20 weeks onward.
Hmm.
So you practice relaxing your body. And if you can practice relaxing your body, the more relaxed you are in birth and labor, the easier, more gentle, more like doable it is. And I think that that wisdom is not everywhere, and it should be. So I share that, being like, check it out, plant a seed. If you have any anxiety, that's something that kept my anxiety at bay, especially after having a loss.
Yeah.
Um, so hypnobirths pushed me through. I put my tracks on, I had sunglasses, and I had this crazy lockdown birth. And they took left like I left the hospital 3 hours later, which is too soon, I think.
Was that by
And
choice or what they wanted?
they wanted us out of there. Everyone was just afraid of like, I don't know what's gonna
Because of
happen. We don't
COVID.
know.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's fair too. Um, but
Wow.
if that was a first time mom, I feel like it would have been negligent. But I knew enough of like kind of what to expect, and so I felt okay and supported by my husband. But if a first time mom experienced that, I feel that that wasn't fair for them. But it wasn't fair for me either. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so I had her April 22, Earth Day on the lockdown.
Hmm.
And so I had three children under, well, just four and under, age four and under. And then the following month, my mother-in-law passed away. And then the 2 weeks later, my father-in-law passed away.
Wait,
And
your mother
yeah,
passed away?
mother-in-law, my husband's mom, who was an angel and is an angel still. Like I have a very strong connection with her. Um,
Yeah.
energetically still. But I say all this because it was such a like stacked year of like massive. That was my solar return too. Is it solar? What's the other? The one 29th year.
Saturn return?
Saturn return. There you go. Thank you.
Return. No, yeah, yep.
Solar return's your birthday. So it was a big year, but it was a blessing because we just got to be home. My kids got to have a whole year with their father home. I don't know how many people can lift their hand up on the planet who have said, I've had a whole year at home with my dad. So
Right.
it's like much of the like intensity of all that. We had so much beautiful like nesting family time that I have so much gratitude for. So when we get out of COVID, I go back to work when my youngest was like a year and a half, and I was
Which is what? Oh, yeah.
a marketing director at a private school, the private school I went to
Oh,
as a kid, and also my kids are there now. So I'm quite tethered to this space, but I also left my job last December so I could have a season with my youngest because I felt like she went into care quite early. So I'm just coming off of 8 months with her, which was such a special chapter of like having one-on-one time, cooking, walking. It was so simple. It was so beautiful. And I just feel grateful for that time too. And then I had my first summer with all my kids, and that was amazing. And now they are launched in school, and here I am
oh,
home and about embarking now on a chapter of a bunch of new beginnings. But I feel like we're talking about motherhood, and I feel like for the last 10 years I've been pregnant with ideas and
mhm.
things I want to create and pursue. but I've been a mother and giving that my energy, which I'm still going to be giving my kids my energy, but it's going to shift as I have days freed up. So now I'm about to enter my labor, and
Mm.
then I will be birthing projects of all types. But here we are. And
Yay.
thank you for having me. Thanks for listening to my long story.
It feels like such a potent time to have you on with like
Yeah,
a
for
whole
sure.
new chapter opening and like a little portal of newness on the horizon. Yeah. Mm,
Portal indeed.
yes. Motherhood. Were we talking about this before the podcast or at the beginning, the initiation piece?
Oh, yeah. During and maybe before too, but
Or
the initiation of when you deliver a child, you deliver you as a mom.
for
Like
those that
you,
are listening and are like, what the hell? Like that lingo is not what they've heard before. I would love, yeah, you to
what do you
tell me.
mean? Which part?
Well, just like when you deliver a child, you deliver yourself. They maybe
Mm,
aren't as in tune with like that spiritual side of it, of like, I'm just
okay.
having a baby, I'm going through the motions, I'm a mom,
Yeah.
and like their heart opens, but like have never maybe heard it presented in that way. Um,
I don't think it's talked about. I really don't feel like it's talked about. I feel like so much of like motherhood is brushed off as just like a given. What mothers do, it's a given. They deliver, it's a given. It's like actually it's the most amazing sacred thing that creates life on earth.
mhm,
This is and it's been like
literally, yeah.
like it's just not discussed in the ways it deserves to be discussed. So I feel so thankful to be here, and thank you people who are listening, um, and have taking what you hear and having those conversations with your partner and your friends and family and other mothers. So when I talk about when you deliver a baby, you, who you were before, you have to mourn that. You
Mhm,
have to mourn who you were. That's not talked about.
yeah.
And you become a mother. You become an entirely new person. And there's a grieving process. 100% there's a grieving process of being like, I want to be who I was, but you'll never be who you were. There's always going to be parts of you, but you are becoming someone new. And you take parts of you that work and sometimes that don't work. It's this, the spiral, right?
Mhm.
And your partner becomes a father or a parent also. They transitioned into something, you transitioned into something, and your child goes from not being here to being here. You bring life into the world. And it's so nonchalantly discussed and
Yeah.
like, but there's nothing bigger. And I hold so much reverence for all mothers. And I like to remember that every single human on the planet was a baby. And for you to be here as an adult really means that somebody loved you.
Mm.
Because if you've been a mother or a parent and you've had a child for 1 year, you realize, oh shit, that took a lot of effort. That took a lot of work.
Oh, yeah. I was a
Like
baby.
every single human, every single adult
Yeah.
had someone love them enough to get them to walking. And in that first year, it's you're so tethered because they need you. They need you. They can't walk. They can't feed themselves. They can't all these other animals, deer, they walk off, they're good. Human babies have to be latched onto their family, their parents, and their mother.
Mm.
So I just like to, anytime you're having a hard time with someone, just remember that they were once a baby too, and it lightens it a bit, right?
So good. I have shared that sentiment in my heart about people and remember they were once a human too. And it's like, isn't it so funny when we see like little babies, there's this softness that typically humans feel, like that warmth and ooh, like this fresh life, the possibility, the sweetness, the beauty, the admiration. Typically, once they're a little older, we're like, oh, at least in America, it's a toddler, it's making noise, like it's a nuisance. And then adults, like, whatever, like, let's just burst right through the adults. And like, we were all once, when I remember,
Sacred.
we're like, every life deserves to be valued.
Every life is a miracle.
Smiled at. Every life is a literal miracle. So I appreciate that acknowledgement. Um, and I think that whatever your relationship with your mother, father, primary caregiver is, like, if you can just take a minute when listening to what you just said and like
Mm.
send some gratitude to them, because whatever that relationship is now, um, just to thank them because you're here today, because someone loved you, because someone cared for your basic needs, in a way sacrificing their own for you. And that is so beautiful.
Day and night.
Mhm.
And on top of that, if we're thanking people, I've been on a path of recognizing that I have ancestors. And I
Mm,
want to share that because
please do.
when you start to actually like acknowledge that, you know, your your mother's mother, your mother's mother's mother,
Hmm.
all did so much for you to be here. The lives that they lived, the sacrifices that they made that go into infinity. We don't know where that started, but when you start actually like appreciating your lineage, even if people have made mistakes and even if there were people in your family tree that you're like, oof, yikes. There's still so many people, and them included, that contributed to your makeup and to you.
Yeah.
And you are a fractal of them, they are a fractal of you. And once I started appreciating my lineage, my mom, specifically, my mom lost her mom when she was only 5. My grandmother, Lois, was 30 when she died.
Jeez.
And only recently have I started to tap into her because I've started to see more photos of her. So I saw her as a child for the first time only a couple of months ago. And when you see someone as a child, it really, yeah, like it softens the being, it makes them real, it makes, oh my gosh, they were once this little child, this innocent little person. Um, and it's even freakier when you see a photo of someone that is a grandparent or a great grandparent and they look like your child.
Oh, yeah.
She's my grandmother. She looks just like my daughter
Mm.
that I never met. And she was just like this idea, this very like 2D person. And the more I learn about her, the more dimensional she becomes. And the more I appreciate my lineage, I feel like literally more empowered, literally more
Yes.
lit up
Hmm.
and alive. So I say that to be like, just consider for a moment what your great great grandparents did to get here, to what they did, how many kids they had, what they had. And this is a good tie-in, it's a good segue to now. What's it like having children now? And I think there's so much fear around what's this isn't a good time to have kids. I'm like, when's it been better?
Oh, yeah.
Like
Right. The
focus
Great
on
Depression. Oh,
focus
heck
on the good stuff that we
yeah.
have going on right now.
Mhm.
This like focus on if you're hearing this podcast, you're probably in North America and you have a device to listen to this. You have time to listen to this. Like there's so many good things and everything is what you make it, but like have appreciation for what is good. And if something, someone, some story is trying to make you feel fearful about life, that's not a good source of information. That's not a nourishing source of information. That's not a kind source of information.
You need to say that again, just for
If
emphasis.
if if there's like if there's a source of information telling you to fear life, cut that out. That is what is that doing? What is that? What kind of world does that create?
Yeah. Thank you.
And for all the moms who are listening or the moms to be who are listening, um, thank you. Thank you for having hope for the future. Thank you for being part of the people who are building that future. And you have to believe in it enough to take that leap because there's so much that says, "Oh, it's not a good time." Da da da. You don't need all the devices. You don't need all the money. You don't need to own a home to be a parent, to bring life into the world. And again, with the ancestors, it's like, what do you think your great, 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 great grandparents did? What do you think they had? How many bassinets do they have? Do they have a Uppa baby? No, they didn't. They figured it out. Like we need so much less than they make us feel like we need.
Hmm.
They make us feel like we need so much more things, status, whatever.
Oh, the billion dollar industry. that's
Yeah.
profiting off of our fear, like
Yeah.
disconnect from
Don't
our babies. Like,
like minimize, like go minimal. Think simple, think natural, just your body knows. Start with less
mm,
and let it build. Don't think you need this to
yeah,
build a life. That's not fair to people
it's just a
to
lie
think.
we've been told, you
Yeah.
know? Like, and there's nothing wrong with having the things that you mentioned either. It's just that if you don't have them, that doesn't necessarily need to be not
Not
bare
a prerequisite.
prerequisite. Yeah.
Your prerequisite is love and
And every
the
mother, every
desire to
child
help.
would say that's what's more important. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, you could have come from a mansion, but the thing that you really needed was love your whole life.
Yeah. They said, I don't know if, well, I bet a lot of people experience this in the first year of like when your baby's trying new foods for the first time and you're just like, ah, are they getting enough iron? Are they getting all this stuff, right? And there's research that says like crappier nutrition, like lower nutrition in a safe home, in a safe, loving home, goes so much further than great nutrition in a stressful, like less loving environment. And I think like it was so good to hear that as a parent being like, oh, okay. And also, side note, look at the month, not the day, when you're looking at your child's nutrition. Don't be like, they didn't get their vegetables, meat, da 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 today. What's
Look
it
at
like
that
for the
whole
month?
picture.
That's just a side
Yes.
new mom thing.
Yes.
But
Take
like that applies to us too. Like it's so much, there's so much more energetically that we can do to nourish our families and ourselves. It doesn't have to be the best this or most organic, da, da, da. How you feel about it, the energy you put into your food that you cook, the energy you put into your home, those are the things that are free and important.
It's a whole new way of looking at it that I feel like I've really heard before and starting, over the last few years to like really absorb and recognize. But it like takes the pressure off what doesn't matter as much and like what
Yeah,
does and the nervous system health that comes from. You could have the most amazing baby food in the world or food for your 5-year-old or 10-year-old, but if the environment it's being served up in is full of
toxic
toxicity or hate or stress, your child's well-being
is affected.
is affected. Will be less well later on.
Totally.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point.
And also, no one's perfect. I'm not perfect. I make errors all the time.
Ditto.
That's part of the thing.
You
I,
guys know
I was
who
actually
you
thinking about it.
are.
I'm like,
Yeah.
it doesn't serve your child to be perfect. It doesn't serve you, it doesn't serve them because when they go out in the real world after having this like carved life, what did you do to help them navigate difficult times too? We're all human, we're all figuring it out. Every parent is figuring it out every day. Every day. I'm just sharing after 8 years, I feel like, wow, I would have loved to have heard someone who has had 3 kids, when I was early on in the experience. So
Mhm.
like I'm happy to get to share what I know now.
Mhm.
Um, and to know that it's valuable because it's not, you're not going to university to become a mom. Not
There's-
really even doing courses. Like you might do a little bit, but like it's experience gained. And this oral passing on of experiences and like honest storytelling, I think is so potent and powerful. So shout out to you for making this space.
Thank you. It's my jam. If I could do this all day, I would. I'm like, we
Hell
need
yeah.
each other. We need each other's stories. Our stories not just keep us connected, but keep us alive and well. And oh, and
This
there's
is the village, remember?
yes.
This is what it's evolving into. And it's okay. And it's beautiful.
Mhm. Yep. Choosing to be grateful for what this modern era has presented us instead of looking at what it doesn't give us is one of my current practices.
Totally like gratitude lack, right?
Yep. Yep. I'm curious for you.
Mm.
As you were speaking, this kind of came up for me. Well, there's a couple things. Before I get to like the birth, because I know you wanted me to bookmark that if it still feels resonant. Um, but I'm like, talking to you, and we're very similar in age. I'm a year older, but I'm like, you're so wise. Like, and your mentality and mindset for life is not something I come across very often. And I'm like, have you always been this way, or what do you attribute to the way you view the world, like the philosophies that you've
Mm,
shared so far?
I'm always learning. I like to read, but I think I'm an old soul. B, I always wanted to be a mom. And C, I don't know. This maybe this is just part of who I am. It's kind of hard to explain like why you are the way you are because everything contributed too, right? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I do a lot of reading on like the soul's path and spiritual growth, and that has given me a really nice perspective on the like it's not this or that, it's both and it's everything. And that's that spiral, right? Not time's not linear, healing's not linear, life is not linear, even though there's so much of our society that's structured to be linear, but like the reality of the human experience is not linear. And so if we're always evolving and imagine the spiral. So you come back to a similar theme each time, but it's different. You're different and you're a little bit like you've expanded more, you've learned more. That's the whole way. I'm reading this book on like wise women, and it's all about the spiral and embracing the both and. It's like nothing's bad, nothing's good. It's just like all is. It's just an experience. And when you embrace that a bit more, I think it A relieves guilt, which mom guilt is very, very real. And even as like wise as I may seem, I experience mom guilt as well. And it's so hard to be like, did I give them enough? Is this enough? Is this enough? Is this enough? And like you'll beat yourself down to a pulp if you just do that. It's not fair. It's not kind to yourself. The reality is we're all doing our best. Oh yeah, I don't know who said this. And if someone figures out this, and I hope you can write it in the YouTube comment, but I think it was a man who said it. And it was just along the lines of like, we all give our kids a bag of shit. Like every parent gives their kid a bag of shit. You just hope it's like a smaller bag of shit.
Than what was handed to you, or just then
Yeah, like then what was
the
handed to
smaller
you.
one.
And like you do hope that you are giving each generation like a
Less.
better experience. And um like if you reflect on I reflect on my childhood and how great it was and the places where it wasn't as great, and I try to incorporate like that healing, that learning for my kids.
Yep.
That's also what this is. Like when you become a parent and you get the opportunity to like be mirrored, your children will mirror you in a way that is really confrontational sometimes, intense, emotional, like shocking, frustrating, and you see yourself as a child for a moment, and you are confronted with that opportunity of handling it the way your parents handled it,
Yep.
or doing something different. And let's say you choose something different, maybe you choose that softer approach at handling your child when they're having that huge moment, that outburst, whatever. You are also healing you at the same time. You're parenting them, you're parenting yourself, you're seeing that moment, and you're doing something differently for you and for them. And that's so beautiful. And that's like such a magical part of being a parent to me.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yes.
I love that. I love connecting with that. And like when you see those opportunities, when you get that maybe triggered feeling of seeing their behavior or whatever, or like my son chooses nails. And I'm like, oh, I chewed my nails. Oh, I was quite an anxious child. Oh, actually, like it it brings things up in a really unique way. The whole thing is such an interesting journey, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
so big and transformational. It's very hard to describe to anyone in a 1 hour slot too.
Yes. And the way you put words to it just was so moving. And I'm I want more of these conversations, because whether you're a parent or not, I have talked to just so many women who have feared motherhood, and don't even realize the beautiful transformation that your soul can go on as a result of becoming a parent and how it can serve you in the best ways. And it is it's a personal decision. It can be a sensitive topic to bring up because oftentimes I'll get pushback for a number of reasons. And I'm not here to tell someone what to do with their life. I'm here to try to present a different take on motherhood as someone who was very turned off to the idea. And I can hear
Wow.
what they're saying. Um, but here now I'm like, no, you need to know there's another way. It doesn't have to be your freedom. Your life is over. You get to choose. Can be
You
if you
get to choose. You get to choose how you do everything, and you
yeah.
really get to choose like you set up their mental framework so much. Like like it's an indoctrination of sorts, right? Like you see those kids that are like love hockey and it's like their dad played it all the time. They showed it to them and they made them obsessed with it. They were a sponge. And
Mhm.
on that note, another important thing that's like coming up. First of all, I want to thank you for making that space, for talking about it like that, for talking about parenting and how it's like opened you up and given you that awakening also, which is so
Yeah.
beautiful and not talked about. So thank you.
Oh, you're
And on the next note of my daughters, both around the age 4, started saying that they could like see spirits. Like my mother-in-law passed away and my daughter was 4 and she was like, Grandma Betty's at the table with us. And that is an opportunity to really shape a big chunk of who they are. And
welcome.
I'm really grateful that I had a cousin-in-law who has that open channel where she can also hear or see other spirits too. And I asked her because I was like, how should I handle this? This was
Right.
interesting. This happened. Um, and sh like the biggest thing is that you don't shut them down. You don't say that was nothing. It's not because of your fear,
Yep. Yep.
because that's shutting a massive part of their own intuition off. And that is such a disservice. And I would say the vast majority of people had to shut
Oh,
it off at one point, whether it was a single comment that their parents said when it was, that's nothing, there's nothing, don't worry about it, shut it down. What you're experiencing, not real.
hmm.
Instead of being open and curious about it. So when my, actually, we were passing this is another weird one, but we were driving past a cemetery. My daughter's 4 in Drumheller. This is by like this dinosaur Badlands zone. We're driving past a big cemetery. And she's like, what are all those people doing over there?
Uh,
And there were no people over there. And we were like, I don't know. Don't know. Like we just let it be like, I don't know. It's okay to say I don't know to your kids too.
thank you.
But
Yes.
I've since like um
Oh,
just like tried to let my like see my daughters, especially because they're the ones that seem to be like quite open to it. And in their journey, I'm opening up my abilities also, and I'm tapping in and I'm allowing those things to be a reality for me too, and to be a tool. Your intuition is, if not your biggest tool. And in a world that tells us to shut it down and that it's not real, I just think we're missing out on a big part of ourselves. So when your child, and this is going to come up more often than not, I mean, these children are bringing such light to the world that are coming out and being born right now. And in the last like 10 years, there's definitely this wave of potent, energetic kids that are bringing hope, and they're the ones that are really going to be eventually taking this torch.
yeah.
So, um,
Mm.
yeah, I just try to like encourage their superpowers, as wild and out there as that might seem for people. Um, I just tell them to like my daughter, she said she could hear her name being whispered, and I think it was my grandma or her grandma, my mother-in-law. And I just said like you can invite it or you can say I don't want. you have the power to close this off and you have the power to invite it in. But like, I'm not going to tell you that's nothing. I'm not going to tell you that you're lying or what you're experiencing isn't real. Like, there's something they're experiencing, and I don't want to shut it down, but I also want to give her the tools to navigate it in a way that still feels empowering for her and safe for her, and
Mm,
to know that she energetically has the power to say no, thank you,
yeah.
or have that conversation. And then my youngest, who's now 4, she was like, Grandma Betty came and visited me last night. And I'm like, really? What happened? What'd she say? She's like, she told me that when we go pick flowers, she'll be there with us. And we had been picking flowers every day in the fields and the wildflowers in our close by dog park. And I was just like, wow, that's so special. That's amazing. I love that you get to have that connection with her because she didn't even get to meet her really. She was only a month old when she died, when her grandma died. So I believe in those things. I think we all have latent abilities and you can turn them on or you can turn them off, but you do have the power to do that for yourself. And you can either foster curiosity, warmth, and openness with it with your children, or you can make them scared of it and make them fear their own abilities and their own connections. And so it's a choice again. It's all a choice.
It's all a choice. I mean, my mind was going so many places, but one in particular that I just felt led to share with you, with what you just said is I can't help but think that there could be a connection, could be a connection between just the mental health crisis we have nationwide
Mm.
and
Mm.
the cut off nature that we have with ourselves, but with our intuition. And it definitely, I can't help but think that there's so many times in childhood where if you're not a conscious parent, if you're not conscious of it, you're teaching your child not to trust themselves.
Yeah.
Or it just takes that one moment, and how teaching them to connect with their intuition is a superpower that can guide them through life. Maybe it's not the reason for depression, anxiety. I'm just, it just thought,
Even like safety, right? Like we tell them, we're like, if someone gives you that icky feel in your body, like that's your intuition.
trust
Get
that.
away from them.
Yeah.
Like trust your body's knowing. Like your body gives you signals, your body knows. So I just think that these kids come into the world with so much. And I do think that a lot of the structures try to make us small, make us same, whatever. Um,
Hmm.
and they deserve to be their fullest version of themselves and to not shut off parts of themselves and embrace that full, even if it's different, even if it's like out there. I'm embracing my out there.
Oh, yeah. How do we do that for our kids? Because what a gift to give them. Like,
But, one like small thing, like if my kids get themselves dressed, and this is like the moment they start doing this, it's very exciting. And it'll be really tempting to like tell them that your shirt's on backwards. You did that wrong. Even though it's early on and they're trying it out. Like the amount of times my kids have walked out of the house with backwards pants on, like butt pockets in the front,
we're like, just
or
let
just
them.
like a
Yeah.
crazy outfit. It's just like, yeah, do it. Who am
Because
I to tell you
why?
not to?
What's that reasoning going on in your head of
Yeah, it's
see that?
about you. It's about you. If you feel the need to change who they are, that's about you. What's that bringing up for you?
So it can even show up in such little, often overseen. Well, of course I'm going to fix their shirt. Of course, like we're going in public, we got to fix their.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really like let the freak flag fly with my third. And that's the other blessing of like having more kids. You literally learn so much every time. Like what I did with my first is so different from what I did with my third. And that will make two different, like it'll make different people, but like they're already souls that are different anyways.
Yeah.
Like I blended all the food and read the books and went very like kind of Western with the first one, and with the third, I was like baby led weaning, and that was the best thing I've ever done. So don't puree the food. Take so many steps, and
Oh,
I could
yeah.
just eat little bits of whatever you're eating. That's
Uh-huh.
quite a bit easier. And that's like now I feel like so much more the norm. But when I had my daughter 9 years ago, it was still like, I don't know, just coming out and we were worried about choking and stuff, but
Sure. Yep. I know it
follow
is
your intuition.
for people that want to have more than one. It is such, again, such a big decision, so personal. And I think it's amazing for so many reasons. Like, think about how much you evolve with each kid and all the lessons they teach you. I encourage it if you can make it happen. But I was
Yeah.
wanting to go back just for a minute when you're like,
Hmm.
you don't need what you think you have. And um, I just wanted to hear more of like your heart there, of like where we get it wrong and maybe even why you think we think that it's,
I don't know if it's like the
yeah,
shows that we're shown, or maybe the people who end up being successful on Instagram sometimes, and they just have this like life um that seems like so big and full, and maybe people are like, well, I can't have kids until I own a house. I hear that one a lot. I hear that one a lot, but it's very hard to own a house. Increasingly hard at this point, right? Um, and fertility for women is a very, very real thing to have an awareness of, which again is not taught enough, because I've had these conversations with women in their 30s, and I'm like, you have a finite amount of eggs, right? Like, and they're just like, what?
yeah.
I'm like, you shouldn't be learning that at 33.
No, that and that they're like that they have a cycle and all the
Oh yeah.
stages of the cycle and that they
Mm-hmm.
replicate the seasons of nature, the seasons of the moon.
100.
Like, what's a luteal phase? Like, I talk to so many 30-year-old women that are like, I just got off birth control for the first time in 20 years and I didn't even know XYZ. And they're shocked and they're sad and they're angry that no one, that wisdom was never passed on. In some cases it certainly is, but the norm
We
that
could have a let's have a 3-hour podcast
that's a
about
whole
that one.
nother episode that I'm like, we need to like keep talking
Because
about
that's a
like
big one. I'm so passionate about periods and cycles, and yes, track your cycle, start
part
learning
two.
about it. Well, part two, but
Yeah.
back to like, why do we feel like it comes down to worthiness too, probably. It's like, well, I'm not enough.
Oh,
I don't have enough. I'm not ready. Well, who's ready? What does ready look like? Do you even know what that looks like? Honestly, like, ask yourself that. And yeah, anytime that I feel like that kind of creeping up of like, oh, well, we have enough this or whatever, it's like, well, what did your ancestors do? My great great grandfather had 10 kids and like potatoes, like they made it work. Like, you
I,
make it work.
yeah.
Seriously, like, you read
You
these
wouldn't be
stories
here
and
if it
the
didn't.
hardships that
Yeah.
that your lineage went through for you to be like, oh, like, I don't own the house yet. They would just be like, really, ma'am? Like,
Got running water and internet and like,
yes,
I need
everything.
so
Like,
much more.
you can keep focusing on the lack and it won't serve you, period. End of that story. But when I just remember going to Toys R Us or Babies R Us 10 years ago, and people want to make money. I get that. But there's so many like devices and toys and the video monitoring and this and that. And you're sold this thing of like, don't break your breakable baby and you need all these devices so you don't kill them and like all this stuff. So it's really fear mongering on new parents who are so vulnerable. Um, and so you do, especially if you've had a loss before, or like you're going through pregnancy, like when you become pregnant and you start to learn about all that, or even before, and you see all the miraculous things that happen and see all the things that have to happen for your baby to come out and be here. And when they're here, you do have this like sense of fragility. And so I don't like that people who sell baby products really like tap into that fear and like try to sell more. So think of what your ancestors did. Be minimal, like start small and like buy what you need as you go a bit. But like diapers, wrap,
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah.
there's not a lot you need in that first year, and like let it build. Buy secondhand, like Facebook Marketplace. There's so much stuff. There's so much stuff in this world, and especially like baby clothes. They literally wear it for 3 months. So don't buy new. Like,
Yeah.
there's so much. There's so much available. It doesn't have to be as complicated, fancy, expensive, whatever, as you might feel like it needs to be.
Good
You
point.
have everything you need right here, right now on your body.
Mm.
Like, and
What?
obviously you want to have a safe place to live. Obviously, there's certain things that you would need also as a human being yourself. But like we had a 1 bedroom apartment when I had my daughter. And she was in a pack and play, like a travel crib at the top of our stairs landing. That's where we had her for the first 3 months. It was
Not gonna
fine.
roll out of that. Yeah.
They're not gonna go on a crib for a while anyways, like generally. But I just think of all the people in the world who have way more kids with way less stuff, and that empowers me. Because in North America, it's honestly a joke what they're trying to push. Don't believe it.
Yeah, so much comes at you. I think that can be intimidating, the
Yeah,
worthiness factor. And right as I was asking that question, another thing that I was curious your take on is I think another part for those that haven't had children is the devaluation of the role of mothering, the devaluation in society. Like, do we really value the work of parenting?
no,
Do we really value what a mother goes through to birth a child and this sacred act? And I wonder if that's a part of it, that disconnect
definitely.
we have, you know?
Another thing that came up too is like a story that I'll hear people like say as their reason for not having kids is like they don't want to mess up the way their parents messed up, or like they had a traumatic childhood and they don't want to pass that on. And so I'm like, it's a really, really beautiful opportunity again to choose something different for your child, to create something else and like simultaneously heal your stuff. Because when it comes up and you're faced with that choice, am I going to make that quote mistake that my parent made and it'll come up and you'll feel it. Like I've had those times where I'm like, whoa, I know what my mom would have done in that scenario with the tools that she had and she was doing her best.
Yeah.
And I love her for all that.
Mhm.
But you're still faced with that opportunity to like choose your direction, choose your adventure. And so anyone who's like, oh, I had too much trauma, I'm like, this is a really great opportunity to create more light and love in this world and heal your stuff. And it's not meant to be easy. None of it's meant to be easy.
Oh,
And that's why I commend all parents and all people who are like, I'm gonna have kids, even though the world's made me think it's very scary. I'm like, you're brave.
yep.
And being a mom of three, the version of myself that I am now is so much stronger and more resilient. Like I can't even put into words like the abilities I feel like I have since having children that are physical, mental, and spiritual.
Mhm.
Like I'm a freaking workhorse now. I was like, I didn't like work. I didn't, I didn't do hard things before.
Yeah, and then you're just thrust in.
I'll admit that. And then you do the hard things and you get stronger and you get more skills and you build this resiliency and you build a family and you have these amazing like speechless experiences with your family.
Yeah.
Like we recently got a dog because I used to pray for a dog. I was 7 years old and I just want a dog so bad. I pray by my window and I didn't
Aw.
get one. I didn't get one. I was crushed. And so like we got this dog in February and it's been a shift and like we weren't dog people. Didn't think I'd ever get a dog. But I honestly did it for I did it for little me and I
Yeah.
did it for my kids.
Hmm.
And so we gotta do these things and it's fun. It's special. And
Yes. We can
you won't
relive
know until you
it.
know it. You won't know until you know it is all you know.
I just hope it sparks like this conversation, like sparks a little more curiosity or like
Yeah.
desire for a few people. And or like they'll share it with people that they know that aren't wanting to have kids just to paint a different picture.
Paint a different picture, have a different
Yeah.
conversation. You're
Have a
doing that.
different
Thank you.
conversation. You're welcome. Like, and think about all the sides of yourself that you've met that you may not have in the same way had you not chosen to become a mother. Like your own
So,
transformation in this lifetime would not have been the same. And not that it couldn't have been beautiful, but
nice.
the legacy, the impact, the way your soul's changed, only I believe as a result of motherhood. That could be a bold. Like how there's nothing more transformational.
Nothing. Nothing more epic also than giving birth. Like I've been skydiving. Very epic. So amazing. Birth,
Never
meh,
have
on
I.
top.
Birth, why was birth more epic? I've never
There's
been guided.
literally, there's no greater physical transformation any human being can do, first. Second of all, you bring life into the world. Third, you bring it through your vagina. Excuse me?
Always. I know.
Like, back up.
Yeah.
Through
Yeah.
your vagina? Every time. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, every single human being came from one of two holes.
Yeah.
The vagina or the hole they cut in you or in your mom. And that is crazy to me. Like, birth is the craziest experience, the most wild experience you can go through.
Mhm.
And every single person here is from birth.
Yep. It's
It's
just,
like the most regular thing. And that's why it's just like, oh, they're giving birth, like
right.
whatever. But
Yeah.
when you
Well,
experience it, there's nothing that is remotely close to as transformational, big, challenging, beautiful, raw, wild,
primal. Yeah.
primal,
I remember,
natural, and
yes.
natural.
Like whenever I was pregnant with my second, I have two, and I chose to do home birth. And I remember like wanting to soak in all the positive birth stories and like see proof of life that other women have done it because I just wasn't
Yes,
surrounded by that.
we need that.
Yes, and all these videos, I think it was on Instagram. I don't know. But I remember watching videos or YouTube or something and like these home birth videos. And even now when I see them, even just a short clip of the baby coming out and it being put on their mother's fresh body and the mother just like sobbing or just like, I just did that, whatever way she birthed, it's almost like a drug. It is so captivating to watch. I would show
As
my
it should
family
be.
members, like it makes us cry every time. And I'm like, how have I overlooked my whole life the sanctity of the most amazing rite of passage a woman can go through as just like, oh, normal every day. Maybe that's another reason why people are like, just happens, like because it's so normalized that it's
I
not
honestly don't know. I don't know why we've got to where we are now, but the wheel's always turning.
yeah.
And the people who are having children, I seriously, I have so much love and respect for people who are choosing that. And I have for people who are trying to conceive and are on that journey or on lost journeys, so
Mhm.
much love and appreciation for you too.
Mm,
And my only wish is that anyone who wants to have children gets to have them
yeah.
because it is so massive and so beautiful, and everyone who wants that really deserves it. And so I pray for all those people who have their babies. And we all know people who are on all sorts of walks of life on this journey of, you know, pregnancy, postpartum, trying to conceive, loss,
Yep.
mothers, grandmothers, like it's all such a big journey. Um, yeah, and it's just like I I also catch myself because there's you don't want to not share these stories because other people are also experiencing those things too. And I think we had that, at least I feel like I've experienced the tendency of like not wanting to share bits out of like not wanting to hurt someone who may have experienced a loss or who's trying to conceive or something like that by like not sharing your beautiful story too.
Mm,
It's tricky to navigate it,
sure.
but I don't think not sharing stories is the key. I think you still got to share, you still got to appreciate, and you still got to keep on keeping on.
Mm.
But I don't think it serves them to not share either because I don't know, don't you think of people who like didn't get that opportunity? Wouldn't they want other people who have that opportunity to be like juicing it, to be really loving it?
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
you get that opportunity down. I
Mhm.
really hope you enjoy it. Like that's also the sentiment there too. So it's a blessing. It's a lot of work. And yeah, just I'm trying to enjoy the journey as much as I can. And no one's perfect. And I have hard days too, for sure. We all do.
And you're doing it in such a cool way. Tell us a minute like about your current setup and situation, living in the house you do, and I think you have some animals like
Yeah. So we live in just I don't know, a regular city lot. We're in a beautiful 1970s community.
love.
And we're like on the street, and we have a regular sized backyard, but we've made a massive garden this past year and we fenced it in and we've grown corn. We had corn last night that we grew. It was the freshest corn I've ever had. We took it off. I'd never grown corn before. Like I
Yeah,
feel like there's been like I don't know about you, but like I wasn't around that. I wasn't around like farm things. I was very part of that like separate go to the grocery store, get your food. It looks this is what meat looks like. I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
like no appreciation for where it came from.
Mhm.
Or food grown. So we've embarked on this. My husband hunts, which is this
He's
was actually a gift to us, but it represents like the appreciation we have for the animal and the animal that we get to eat. So yeah, we have a garden, we've got corn, tomatoes, and greens and all these things. And that's been such a beautiful journey of seeing that you can make your own food, feels amazing, tastes amazing, is cheaper in some regards. Like we had to build a fence this year and that
sure,
was
sure.
an investment, but
Mhm.
Um, it was so empowering and so rewarding to water the earth. And I actually sing to my garden. Like I'll be like, I'll
Oh,
sing thank you songs to it and I'll encourage it. And I really intend to foster a connection with Mother Earth and Father Son and that relationship that allows life to happen on Earth. And yeah, making our garden. We had four chickens and our dog killed one when we
oh,
were like, let's try to have it open and free. And no,
yeah.
can't do that.
You're
The chickens
like
are
you're
in
kind
their
of
coop.
working out. Yeah.
Yeah, we had to work out those kinks. So we did lose a
Oh,
chicken, unfortunately. But we have three other ones and we literally feed them like they have their own chicken feed and chicken
yeah.
water in a coop that we made out of an old shed in our backyard. They allow urban farming in Calgary, so you can have up to four chickens, no roosters. And yeah, we like
Mm,
my kids got to experience raising little chickens and we feed them their like food scraps
fun.
they don't eat in their lunch, like those food that you would naturally
Uh-huh.
compost or throw away. We
Mhm.
give to the chickens. They eat everything and they make us eggs. Like what pet eats garbage and gives you food?
Yeah, right. So
They're
cool.
the freaking best pets and they're cute and they like pets and they have names and I adore them. And so we actually are next to a walking path too. So we're quite a spectacle for people to walk by, but they love it. They love our dog. They love seeing the chickens. Like small children come every single day to say hello to our chickens. So it's like there's something natural and like magnetic, A, about life and B, about like there's something natural about having this around us. So I feel like we're urban. I say we're urban homesteaders. I even started making my own skincare out of the animal fat that my husband hunts deer and elk. Um, and I've never had better skin in my life, so
Hmm.
check out tallow. It
I was
works.
wondering, tallow, yep.
Tallow. Yeah, and there's literally four ingredients in it. And I had very bad skin as a teenager.
Mm.
And so to have this thing that's only four ingredients and it's natural from the earth, beeswax, cold press olive oil, animal fat, and like 16 drops of lavender essential oils. That's it. And I have the best skin I've ever had. So
You need to have
I
the
just,
essential oil. Is that more for the fragrance, or does that
yeah,
help with the skin?
I think it's like I think lavender's fine. I
Yeah,
didn't like choose it for skincare things. It was more like the scent, but
for
yeah,
sure.
I love getting to make things. I make my own sourdough when I can. I haven't for a while, but I'll be getting back into that. And so I also try to involve my kids in cooking as much as I
Mm.
can. We don't have iPads. You're like wanting to know like what we do differently. They definitely watch movies and a bit of shows here and there. But yeah, we don't have iPads. I'm a hard no on iPads. Um, I just see how addictive they are and the dopamine connections and in these developing brains, I can't do that. Um, what else do we do differently? I don't know.
You're
I
working with
just,
your hands, though. That's just
yeah,
showing your
working.
children, creating.
Oh, and when they pick food and they just pick kale from the garden and eat it and they when we dig up the potatoes, it is like Halloween. Like when they dig them out and they're like, "Wow, look at all these potatoes!" Because you can't see them, right? You don't see that there's food
Yep,
growing into there,
yep,
and then you dig
yep.
them up and they're like little golden balls. It's really exciting, and I'm excited too. And yeah, just seeing all this food that we made with our hands, with a relationship with the earth. that my kids are getting, like where's that going to take them? What kind of skills and knowledge are they going to have in 10, 20 years? This is all brand new to me. Like I only just started being like, okay, seeds, dirt, got it. Like my husband definitely led the way on that, thankfully, but what are my kids going to be like when they grow up with all this um nourishment that they like had hands-on experience with? And even the meat, like we talk about meat, and hunting is an interesting one that I'm sure will, it like brings up a trigger point for people usually, and it definitely did with me when my husband first started to like do it. I was very like vegan vibes, living in
Wow.
sunny
So
BC, and just I just remember being like,
patient.
"Ugh, if you have to, like, ugh." But like we're getting, this is a good tangent, but like deer, if they aren't hunted, they will. Do you know how they die? The ways they die?
No. And I grew up with deer in the backyard. I don't.
Okay. Well, in Canada, they will either be eaten alive by wolves or bears. Rough exit. Freezing to death or starving to death. So those are like generally like the main ways they would die. All pretty awful. And if they're hunted, they die quickly and probably less painfully than the other ways, I think for sure. And then families get to nourish themselves on this meat. And lately, like incorporating the tallow and the animal fat, this is new this year for us. And we made soap too, which is really cool.
Uh,
Couple more steps and things, but the tallow is easier. But um loving, like when my husband brings the meat home, I have this like, whoa, wow, thank you, animal. This animal lived this like wild, beautiful life. I got it. And
reverence or something. Yeah.
oh, just so much reverence. And I thank it, and I feel like we know it better, and knowing the families it's nourishing. And when my husband comes home begged, like he is so tired after working so hard and like working for the food. And there's such a beautiful thing that happens there. And like I'm very vocal with my kids being like, Dad hunted this meat. He processed this. He made this sausage.
Hey.
Like gratitude for the food we eat. Like when we sit down and have dinner, I try to say like, let's thank our food. Let's thank the people who made this bread. Let's thank the people who made this sauce. Wow. Think they thank the veggies for growing. Like I just, gratitude's a big one that I really try to infuse to the max, and I hope it goes in the right direction. I hope they're not like, oh, gratitude, you know.
Yeah, right. They're sick of it. No.
I don't know. Doing
Amazing
my best
though.
out
But keep
here.
doing it anyways. I'm like, yeah, no. Oh, I
So yeah,
love
those are a
that.
couple things.
Yes. Thanks for taking
Reading,
the. Do you read out loud to the kiddos or do they have little nooks or?
both. It's really cool having readers. So cool watching your kids become readers. Which I cheer that on too. And like my son reads like comic books, Dog Man, which is Captain Underpants, same author that did that. And
Oh,
like
okay.
reading's reading. So stoked he's
Yeah.
reading. But I read Judy Blume books to them out loud. That's a big one. They're really, really funny books and enjoyable for adults as well, which I think is so important. If it's boring for you, I find that I'll be reading and like my mind's going other places, and I like to be present with the book and the kids. And so it's cool when they reach an age where you can read a story out loud without pictures. Or Roald Dahl has like a little bit of pictures,
Oh,
and
right. Yeah.
love Roald Dahl books. So yeah, reading is a huge one. But I don't know. Camping's really powerful to do with your family because you're spending a lot of time together. Like if we're home, our kids might be downstairs or outside. Like it's not the same, but when you camp, you're actually very close together and getting special quality time. So that's another cool one that we are really big about too.
Yeah, that's a really intriguing tradition that a few of my dear friends do with their families. I'm like, ooh, I didn't grow up doing it, but I've told my husband I really want us to be a camping family.
Yeah, I didn't grow up
There's
doing it
really
either.
nice thing about it that I'm like, yeah. Again,
Give it a
it's like a
go.
draw to nature too, that I think,
Yes.
and then especially throughout COVID, people were just like waking up to new hobbies or seeing the world differently and
Mm,
desiring and like being so grateful when they could reconnect depending on where you lived. And I think there is this beautiful movement of like just honoring the earth and getting out and hiking more. And maybe you're making more sourdough, whatever that is. Like,
yeah.
no
Oh,
judgment.
it it
You aren't
it
doing it
opened
this
people up.
way. It
Like
opened, yeah.
you can see it as this like heavy dark time, or you can also see it for like, wow. actually, these are the sweet things that happened in that time that I never would have gotten or never would have done. And
Yeah.
I think everyone has a really unique story on like how did that impact you? How did you change your life? Because it was impossible not to change your life.
Oh yeah. That would be a podcast. How did COVID, how did COVID impact you?
Yeah.
Um, because it definitely,
Especially now that we're like, it feels like we're on the other side. It felt like we were in it for forever, right?
mm,
And
brutal.
I really also see this like beautiful resurgence of celebration. We had a very like celebratory full year, which is like, it's can take a lot of energy, but what a blessing to be in this post culture, right? You know, with the in after the First World War and people had like the roaring 20s and 30s,
Huh?
you know, there was
Uh-huh.
that huge celebration of like where like I'm wearing a sparkle. I like to wear
Oh,
sparkle as much as I can, like dress up, like celebrate life. Don't wait for the
absolutely.
day to use the china and wear that jewelry and like today's the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I've told this story online before. Like, I learned that I've kind of always had that spark in me, but it really hit home maybe 7 or 8 years ago when I was visiting a homeschooling mama that was involved at the church I was at the time. And she was in remission from cancer, had two young girls. And
Mm.
I was like, "You're serving me on your finest plate." She's like, "Girl, these are from Crate and Barrel. Like they were always put up and away." But when I realized I didn't know if I'd be here the next day, like I started celebrating every day and bring out the china,
Mm.
like drink out of our nice goblets because why not? And so this
Yep.
whole like, inspiration of like, how can we elevate the daily? Why do we have to wait for the special occasion?
Yeah.
Just the special sacredness of life, bringing that to the forefront. If our kids aren't already doing that for us, like,
Yeah. Well, that's also like getting into the like abundance mentality too versus like the lack, can't do it now, can't, no, 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 no. Do
yeah.
it now, enjoy it now, maximize it now. Like having three kids, like more is more. That's how I feel. Like more sparkles, yep,
Oh
more is
yeah.
more.
Yes. Just make
Turn
it
it up.
fun. Oh my gosh. Like, yeah. I just want them to like look back on their childhood and be like, sometimes it was stressful. My mom was imperfect. That's okay. Like, we had a lot of fun together. Like, how,
Yeah.
even just taking a moment to reflect of like, how do you want your children to remember
Mm.
their childhood? It's obviously out of our control to an extent of each child might
Ain't it?
experience, but like being intentional about like the experience we're creating for our kids. Like, is the way you're currently doing things how you want it to be? You actually do have some
Mm.
power there.
Yes.
And what needs to be realigned, you know? Are you taking it too seriously? Maybe
Yeah.
that kind of,
Usually.
yeah, yeah. Um, I love our conversation. And there's like a million, like we said, a
I
seven
know.
ways.
We could do a 3 hour one
So
faux
yeah.
show.
I was curious, like as we're closing, if there was anything that felt left unsaid,
Mm.
that's still on your heart that you would want to share to the listeners.
Mm. I did touch on it, but I feel called to just say, tap into your intuition and follow your heart and listen to those little whispers. And as a woman, the more you align yourself to your cycle and actually like realize that your body has this clock and this system and way of being, and you embrace it and you love it and you appreciate it and you see it, your intuition will turn up. And when your intuition turns up, then you can be tapped into the unseen a lot easier and you can be supported energetically a lot easier. And the more you listen to your intuition, I think greater flow and greater good flows into your life versus if you shut that off and go off, live your life based on what other people think is how you're supposed to do it. If you're like, I'm going to look for that external guideline on how to raise kids, the biggest tool you have is your own intuition. So
Yeah.
I hope feel that every single person has it. Every single person has this innate ability and inside voice, and it starts with just listening to it on which turn should I take, and you get that ping. That's how it starts. That's how your intuition starts. If you're like, how do I build it? That
Right, right.
it's listening to the whispers.
Those things
So
starting small with the little
yeah, and especially as a mom, because you are constantly navigating new stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like you're like, I'm mastered toddlers. It's like, well, buckle up
Just ready for
because
the
there's
next.
another one coming. There's another phase coming, and like you have to keep navigating it in a way that is true to your heart, and you do that through intuition. And as a mother, as a woman, you have this really powerful innate intuition. Don't shut it off.
Mm, so needed right now. I think we're in an intuition deficit, but there's also that
Mm.
awakening that I sense,
Awakening.
noticing like, oh, I do have some power that lives within me, and I've realizing it's been shut down for a number of reasons for a number of years, and I want to roar. I want to like hear her and like connect with
Mm.
me. So beautiful.
Yay.
Thank you. It was
Thank
so
you.
fun
Thank you,
talking to
everybody.
you.
Ditto.
Yeah. I had a
I look
feeling.
forward to more conversations,
Yeah, absolutely. There
off
will
and
be
on the
more.
pod.
Yeah, exact. Right back at you. Sad we live in a different state. But hey, I love this. I love this. Different state, different country.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you and speak openly about things like this because I think
Mm,
I'm sure there's a handful of things that were taboo. I don't know who says what's taboo, but
love it. Yes.
unspoken of,
Uh-huh.
not talked about a lot. So thank you for giving me the space to speak on it from my heart. And thank you if you've listened this far. Thank you.
Yes, right. Thank you for like pulling back the mask on so many topics that need to be talked about. Like nothing good comes from stuff living in the dark. It just
True.
doesn't. Whether it roots and manifests in us and like shows up in this ease, right? Or it separates from others because we're too afraid to tell someone how we really feel, or it isolates us from another person. Like we have to slowly bring it to the light. And you did that for us today. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.